Good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight with Ian Haslam. Thank you for joining us. Our top story. Lucy Letby's lawyers call for all her convictions to be reviewed after an expert witness changes his mind over the death of 3 babies. The former nurse's barrister says the lead prosecution expert, Dr. Dowie Evans, has altered his view. Also tonight, the NHS in the region reports unprecedented demand for its services as winter pressures and the so-called quademic hit hard.
What the public are used to hearing is us saying that winter is a busy time for the NHS, but certainly this year is far outweighs previous years.
New medals for 101-year-old veteran Jim after his World War II originals were stolen.
And it's been a noticeably mild start to the week, especially for this time in December. A lot of cloud out and about and breezy too. It will get colder, but when? Join me at the end of the programme. I'll give you all the details.
The barrister heading Lucy Letby's appeal says he has fresh evidence which should allow her case to be reopened. Mark MacDonald, KC, says the main prosecution witness has changed his mind on the cause of death for 3 of the babies she was convicted of killing, although not the fact that she killed them. He held a press conference in London today. Our health correspondent Jill Dummigan was listening in and joins me now. Jill, what are the basics of what Mr MacDonald's claiming?
Well, this is all about Dr. Dowie Evans. Now, he was the main prosecution witness in the first trial, which ended in August 2023. During the trial, he said that Letby had killed babies C, I and P by forcing air into their stomachs. Today, though, Letby's barrister, Mark MacDonald, KC, said that Dr. Evans had subsequently contradicted himself and that he'd written a new report into baby C's death.
I have never known, in 26 years of being a barrister, an expert to change their mind a year after the convictions on the cause of death and what they said to the jury. That, to me, is astonishing. And he has said that. He has said that these babies did not die this way, and he said it in a signed statement.
Now, I should say that this assertion hasn't been verified by the BBC. So Mr MacDonald claims that this makes those convictions unreliable and therefore all convictions which rely on Dr Evans' evidence unreliable, and he wants the Court of Appeal to look at it all again.
Mr MacDonald had a number of medical experts with him, didn't he?
Yes, he has a team of medical experts from around the world, he says, who are giving their time for free, and that they were doing that because they feel that something has gone wrong. Now, one of those experts is Dr Richard Taylor. He's a neonatologist from Canada. He read the full report into the death of baby O. Lucy Letby was convicted of murdering him by injecting air into his nasogastric tube. But Dr Taylor said that he'd actually died because a doctor trying to release pressure in the baby's abdomen had mistakenly punctured his liver because he'd put the needle into the wrong side and because high-force ventilation was pushing the liver down below its usual position. I should say again that the BBC hasn't been able to verify these assertions. So,
Jill, what happens now?
Well, Mr MacDonald said he's going to put his application into the Court of Appeal this week. You may remember that this case has already gone to the Court of Appeal twice and has been rejected. The next move would normally be to take it to something called the Criminal Cases Review Commission, but that can take years, so he says he's going to run both appeals in tandem. Now, of course, at the same time as all of this, there's an inquiry going on in Liverpool, the Thirlwell inquiry, looking at why Letby wasn't stopped sooner. The head of that inquiry, Lady Justice Thirlwell, has criticised those who've raised questions about Letby's conviction. She said it's simply causing more pain for the families. The Crown Prosecution Service has also pointed out that 2 juries and 3 appeal court judges have previously convicted her. She is, of course, convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 others. Mark MacDonald, though, says that his role is to represent his client, and when he sees injustice, it's his job to do something about it.
OK, Jill, thank you very much for the update. Our health correspondent, Jill Dummigan there. And now let's get a roundup of some of today's other news now. And 5 people have been arrested after a woman in her 50s was killed in a hit-and-run in Lancashire last night. 2 19-year-old men, a 20-year-old woman and a 17-year-old boy are being held on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving in Nelson. A 5th person was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. The South Lakes Safari Zoo in Cumbria has announced it's closing. The zoo is at the centre of allegations over poor animal welfare, which bosses denied. They're now investing in a new nature park in T-Bay and are working to find suitable new homes for zoo animals. Over 800 people have signed a petition for Wirral Council to reconsider its change to the chiming of the bell at Birkenhead Town Hall. Its decision last month to cut the number of rings from 4 times an hour to once was made following a single noise complaint. Wirral Council says the compromise was made while it looks into other options. NHS officials in the North West have told us they're dealing with massive demand as the so-called quaddemic continues to take its toll on services. 4 different viruses, flu, COVID, norovirus and the RSV respiratory complaint are all prevalent, and the number of patients hospitalised with flu symptoms in England has risen by 70% in a week. Earlier, I spoke to Wirral-based Dr Paula Cowan, the region's medical director for primary care, and asked her just how bad things are here.
I think what we're seeing is unprecedented demand. And we say that, I think what the public are used to hearing is us saying that winter is a busy time for the NHS, but certainly this year is far outweighs previous years. And certainly, and that applies across the Northwest also. Pressures on our hospitals, on our ambulance services, but also on our community and primary care services as well. So our NHS across the Northwest is experiencing increased demand.
Last week, we reported on the Royal Blackburn Hospital issuing a red alert with A&E waits for patients of up to 15 hours. Is that about the worst it's likely to get here in this region, or could we potentially be looking at this on a wider scale across the region?
I'd like to answer you, Ian, by saying, yes, that's the absolute worst, and we won't see anything worse than that. But you mentioned the word potential, and unfortunately, the current pressures that we are seeing across secondary care trusts and our ambulance services are such that we may see similar situations in other trusts. But our aim and our hope is that we wouldn't see that degree of pressure, particularly coming into the Christmas and festive period. But we have to just be mindful of all of the other issues that are ongoing, in particular, all of the rising infections that we are seeing.
All of which will be concerning to people watching this now. The NHS says it wants people who are eligible for the flu vaccine to have it. To ease the pressure on the NHS, are we, the public, taking things like flu seriously enough?
We make a big push for flu vaccinations alongside COVID vaccinations and now the RSV vaccination from the end of summertime onwards. And the key message to get across is that if you had your flu vaccine last year, please come forward and have it again this year if you were in one of those eligible groups. The immunity that the vaccine gives you does wear off. We're seeing increasing demand in secondary care trusts, as I just said, and part of that is because we've got a 28% increase in the last week in the number of cases of flu in our hospitals.
And as a final point, Paula, the government said a few days ago it had inherited a broken NHS that sees the annual winter crises as the norm, and that its so-called plan for change will create a year-round health service. In your opinion, how broken is the NHS with regard to the North West in particular, of course?
I think the NHS is under extreme pressure. As I've just said, we're seeing more and more flu, RSV, noro, COVID viruses in our hospitals. So I think, you know, to use headlines like the NHS is broken, the NHS has been around for over 75 years and will continue to be so. And I think we as healthcare professionals and as the public are duty bound to support that.
Dr Paula Cowan, thank you very much for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Clearly a very difficult time. We're going to be in one of the region's hospitals later this week to take a further look at how the NHS is coping. Now, stories and poems have the power to change the way we look at life, and it's believed they can also transform life for people living with dementia and their families, friends and carers. The Reader is a Liverpool-based charity which runs reading groups for a whole range of people. It's dementia-friendly and sessions are proving to be hugely popular, and the charity is launching an appeal to expand now, as Lindsay Prosser reports.
Inside the pub, there were only the drivers and a couple of Shirley.
Angela and her mum Barbara love reading.
Was to act as a break at all. this is the time.
Barbara also loves talking about the stories the group reads together.
Not to have extra time.
No. I just love books and I like chatting to people, you know.
Driving in the graft and going around. As well as a love, a love of reading. As you've probably gathered, she likes talking and discussing as well.
Oh, yeah.
So this group is perfect because she's reading and then she's having the opportunity to discuss.
Well, I've never had this opportunity, you see.
Barbara has dementia, but here poems and short stories stir memories, and she contributes to the discussions with enthusiasm.
And we never got to eat or anything because, you know...
I think for Barbara, it's lovely that she's part of something that's just a normal everyday activity, not treated differently because she's got dementia. And for me, one of the important messages is that you can live well with dementia, you can still be part of normal things with the right support and encouragement.
So what do you think so far? Do you think he's going down the slippery slope?
The reading group is organised by the charity The Reader, which aims to use the power of literature to transform lives. It's now raising funds to create a network of reading groups, which will support people living with dementia.
Thanks, Chris. So,
I've worked with people who have got quite advanced dementia, and I've actually seen people physically unfurl and kind of open up, even in their body language, and respond to sometimes the rhythm and rhyme of a poem.
Tries to sing and then it's moaning.
This group also welcomes the families, carers and friends of those with dementia. Delia attended the group with her husband, who has the condition. He can no longer come along, but she still attends, as here she receives support and understanding.
It's uplifting, I can laugh, I forget about any worries or concerns that I've got. Because where I live, everyone was cackling, we all went to snow now.
Lindsay Prosser at BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Good to see such great work being done there, isn't it? Now, a D-Day war veteran whose medals were stolen has been presented with replacements at his care home in Accrington. Jim Laughlin, a Royal Marine, is 101 years old. The medals were commissioned by the Ministry of Defence to recognise his gallantry in clearing one of the Normandy beaches of obstacles armed with just a knife. I should warn you that Phil Cunliffe's report does feature flashing lights.
At 101 years old, Jim Laughlin is a great survivor. It was his bravery and stealth on June 6, 1944 that allowed other servicemen to survive the landings on Gold Beach.
My job was the mines that were laid in different sections, and they couldn't tell one man from another. Just a day's work is that, to go in and dislocate the mines so I can bring the boats in.
So you swam onto Gold Beach?
Oh yeah, but nobody knew that because I was there before them.
So you were there before?
Underneath the lighthouse, which I used as a fixing point.
Victory in France marked the start of the end of the war in Europe and Hitler's eventual downfall. Jim played his part and also served in Italy.
I waking up some nights and looking to my friends that I lost and one thing and things like that.
This is it. They're on the beach.
A number of medals were awarded to Jim for his gallantry and service.
Well, sadly, all of Jim's war medals were stolen a few years ago, but 5 of them have been remade. Sid, this is your idea, isn't it?
It is, yes. One of the members of the staff from the hospital approached me as the Armed Forces lead for the hospital to see if it was possible to replace Jim's medals in some fashion. So I contacted the MOD and the MOD Medal Office, and they kindly obliged, and they've reproduced these 5 medals for him.
Jim.
Yes.
The Lord Lieutenant has asked me to come and represent you with your medals after they were stolen.
On his special day, members of the Royal Marine Association were joined at Jim's care home by one of the Deputy Lieutenants for Lancashire, whose job it was to present him with his medals.
I think there were around 17,000 Royal Marines who were involved in D-Day, both with the blowing up of shore defences and manning the landing craft. Beggars belief, really, how you swim ashore at dead of night and not know what's going to blow you up or not. So, amazing.
As for his longevity, this war hero puts that down to lots of fresh air and clean living.
I'll go to 120, 130, no problem.
Phil Cunliffe, BBC North West Tonight, Accrington.
Fresh air and clean living, you say?
That's not us, is it?
No, it's not. 101, no chance. Richard is here now. I like the fact we both stood by the Tower of Doom.
Yeah, I feel like we should be playing keepy uppy across the divide, but that wouldn't last long, would it?
Wouldn't last long.
No.
2 knocks.
That won't work.
But anyway, let's move on to yesterday's. I was watching it, you were watching it, the Manchester derby, a difficult watch at times, but it burst into life right near the end with United winning. Pep Guardiola's problems, though, never thought I'd say this, Pep Guardiola's problems are really mounting up, aren't they?
I know, we're saying these things more often than we ever thought we would. The champions have now just won once in 11 matches after that 2-1 defeat to Manchester United. A fantastic win for United, of course, but another difficult moment, as Ian says, for Pep Guardiola and his team, who have been used to sweeping all before them, of course, haven't they, in recent seasons. There are injuries and other factors at play, but how much is this becoming a mental problem for the Blues as they search for answers to get them back on track?
The boss, I'm the manager, and I'm not good enough.
For 90 minutes, and that is very good. And I feel that they believe it.
What you want on Derby Day is that fight, that resolve, things missing from what we're used to seeing from a Pep team.
Do you believe that Pep Guardiola will get it right?
Yeah.
Seem to be sort of a desperation creeping in. Once you go in with that level of desperation, kind of psychologically, so I would imagine that he's investigating psychological solutions. Maybe they have a club psychologist. Maybe he's doing some of that work to try and get into the minds of the players.
Burnley are up to third in the Championship after coming from behind to beat Norwich 2-1. Zian Fleming with a stunning goal for the Clarets there. East Lancashire neighbours Blackburn Rovers are only 4 points behind after a 2-0 win at home to Luton. Made it 6 victories in a row for John Eustace's side. And Preston North End had to make do with a 1-1 draw at home to Leeds, who equalised in stoppage time to cancel out this goal from Brad Potts. In League One, Blackpool came away with an excellent 3-0 victory at Reading, with Wigan winning 2-0 at Bolton Wanderers. A great result for the Latics, but a bruising defeat for playoff-chasing Wanderers. And this was the reaction of Bolton boss Ian Evatt to a question from BBC Radio Manchester's Jack Dearden about whether he's taken the team as far as he can.
I mean, that's an easy question to make on the back of that, isn't it? But, you know, you're talking about someone that's won over 50% of his games at this football club, more than anybody else. You're talking to someone who's just took 26 points in the last 13 games in the league. You know, I find that question baffling.
Manchester United women will host Manchester City in the quarter-finals of the League Cup, with City reeling from their first ever WSL defeat to Everton at the weekend. First half goals from Lucy Hope and Hanaka Hayashi were enough for Everton to come away with an excellent 2-1 win. Manchester United won 1-0 at Crystal Palace, with Liverpool losing 1-0 at home to Arsenal. And in boxing, Liverpool's world champion Natasha Jonas is in line for a huge unification fight against Wales's Lauren Price. Natasha has added the WBC welterweight title to her IBF crown to become a 2-weight unified champion. Fighting in front of her home crowd, Natasha had too much for her opponent Ivana Habazin to earn a unanimous points decision. Many congratulations to Natasha. What a fight that will be against Lauren Price. Fleetwood, by the way, host Accrington Stanley League 2 tonight. Ian, all the best coverage, as you know, on BBC Radio Lancashire.
You've sold it to me, Rich.
I always do. Well, no, I don't, actually.
That's for sure. Playoff chasing Bolton, you said then. As a fan, I might be inclined to call them relegation haunted Bolton.
Just outside the playoffs, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I know, but it's not looking good, though. Jack Dearden there from BBC Radio Manchester, asking the tough questions, as is his wont, and he did well there, I think. You've got to put these questions.
You've got to do it. I mean, Jack's been doing that for, you know, nearly as long as I have. But he never hesitates to ask a difficult question, I guess, for Ian Evatt, you know, because of, you know, the points he made about his record and so on. A difficult question for him to have to be asked. But, you know, Jack asked the questions and he got an answer.
Don't mess with Jack Dearden.
I never would, mate.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Rich. From Askham to Askham in Furness in a second. It's our Christmas star time, if I look at the right camera there, where we honour some of the people. Hello. You've told us make a real difference where you live, and the next nominee is Elaine McNamee, who leads line dancing classes in Askham in Furness in Cumbria, Yeehaw or whatever they say. The group's been going for 40 years and it's raised thousands of pounds for charity. Michelle Adamson went along to surprise her.
It's not just the nifty moves that make these line dancing classes in Askham in Furness so popular.
We love cake
and we love cups of tea and we love a good natter, so we get that as well. And I think we've become a large family.
Elaine McNamee joined the group 40 years ago and now leads the dancers through their paces on a weekly basis.
Fortunately, a lot of our friends we've lost, but we do keep getting new people that come in, and we always try to make them welcome. And
I only found out about the group earlier this year, and they've all been so great and welcoming and friendly. I really feel like I belong now.
It's so friendly, and even if you just come for a drink, a cup of tea, we're quite happy to see you all.
So, Linda and Norman, you've got the important job now of presenting the Christmas star to Elaine. So, tell us a little bit about Elaine.
Well, Elaine, she's a one-off to start with. Now, this class would have closed years ago if it hadn't been for Elaine. There's not many people that would give their time up to do what she's done. And that, so we're so glad, aren't we, that she's our friend.
Oh God, well, she's my daughter, so yeah, me and her mum are really proud of her.
Lovely group. It's been fabulous watching all your fancy footwork, but actually, it's all about you today, Elaine. Norman and Linda would like to give you something.
I know I'd like to give Norman and Linda something as well.
You are awarded the BBC North West Tonight Christmas Star Award.
Did you know all about it as well?
I knew nothing.
And you. Very happy. A little bit annoyed at some people, but yeah, it's lovely to have such good friends around me. I'm very, yeah. Thank you.
Elaine is a wonderful, wonderful person every way. I'm bound to say that, aren't I? But if anybody's down, just get along here, and when you go out, you'll have a smile on your face.
Michelle Adamson, BBC North West Tonight.
Another Christmas star coming tomorrow. We smashed another one the other day. You'll be glad to know. It keeps happening. I don't know why. It just keeps happening. Kate's here with the weather now. I just asked Kate, what should we talk about? What should we talk about? And she said, well, if you're a moron, you'd ask me if it's going to be a white Christmas.
I wouldn't say that, would I?
Well, as it goes, I am a moron. But my question isn't that. My question is, you've not presented a Christmas star yet.
Thanks for pointing that out and highlighting that I've not been invited to do it.
No, you have been invited. It's just I've popped for a few, but, you know.
You keep smashing them, so there's none left for me to do, that's why. And if you're looking for a white Christmas, well, we are going to get colder next week, and actually it only needs one snowflake somewhere in the UK, and there's a high chance of that, more often than not, actually. Now, to the weather photos. Where am I going? This way. This was last night. Stephen took it, and I just loved that photograph, Stephen. You're right. It was a beautiful photo. And today, Jean in Hindley in Wigan, more cloud, I'm afraid. And that's how we'll see it tomorrow again. Jean, thanks for the photo. If you want to join me on socials, please do. It's coming up there. There you go. Or you can become a BBC weather watcher. Send your photos in and let's try and get them on the telly for you. So this week, what's going on? Well, pretty much a little bit of everything. We're starting off mild, really unseasonably mild. For the 16th of December, we got 12 degrees today. We're going to see some heavy spells of rain at times. We're going to have some strong and blustery winds. And towards the end of the week, it's going to get colder. So you can see here on the pressure chart, the oranges and yellows indicate the milder air. So as we head through Tuesday and Wednesday, it stays with us. Then we draw down more of a northwesterly and things are going to get cooler, briefly, for a time. Now, if we head out through this evening, most of us will be dry. The odd rogue isolated shower. Many of us dry, I think, for parts of Cumbria, some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A few clear spells, but cloud generally increases towards the end of the night, with temperatures down to 6 to 9 degrees. Then, as we head through tomorrow morning, an awful lot of cloud out and about. Through the morning time, there could well be a few patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle. I think we are going to see it starting to brighten up across more southern parts. So for parts of Merseyside, we'll see some spells of sunshine. Blustery, though, winds up to 30, if not 40 miles per hour, with highs of 11 degrees. And then, as we head through Wednesday, a new front is going to introduce some rain later on through the evening. And like I said, cooler but sunny for Thursday. That's your forecast.
Okay, that was excellent. Come sit down before I've saved you a seat.
Oh, thank you very much. How kind of you.
So it's going to be mild this week. My boring question every week is kids' football going to be on Saturday?
Saturday, is kids' football going to be on? It's going to be colder and we're still going to have strong winds.
Right.
So, yes, probably, and you'll be cold and hating me as you stand at the side of the pitch.
But warm-hearted. Right, thank you very much, Kay. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30, but for now, from me and Kay, have a good evening, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.
Take care.